Yesterday was a day filled with interesting conversations, to say the least. It's really pretty fascinating when you take time to listen. Do you do that? I had some conversations early in the day about what's going on in our culture today. We talked about race, we talked about religion, we talked about politics, we talked about just about everything but economy. Actually, we even touched on economy a little bit. And getting differing worldviews from different age levels, different economic levels, different races, different communities is very enlightening. But see, there's this underlying reality that we all have to cope with, and that is there is a certain realm of the unknown, which, depending on where we are in life, may be 50% of the unknown, 90% of the unknown, 100% of the unknown, or it may be that we deal with the unknown on a regular basis, but only 20% of the unknown impacts us in a way that we're unaware of. So think about that for a moment. How many things impact your life in a way that you're not even aware they're impacting you because they're unknown to you, but they're still impacting you? There's an old phrase that fits into the learning model. The learning model says, I'm unconsciously incompetent. And the phrase that goes with that level is, I don't know what I don't know. But because you don't know that you don't know that yet, you operate in that unconscious incompetence level in pure ignorance. Not stupidity, but ignorance. Ignorance meaning I've just never been exposed. I've just never been made aware. I don't know because I haven't had a chance to know, or I don't know because I haven't looked or asked or researched, so I just don't know. And if we operate in that level in all areas of our life, spiritual, financial, emotional, relational, intellectual, educational, then we will find ourselves like a blind rat in a maze, constantly bumping into walls, running into things that for most people are not obstacles. Can you imagine the hurdles that they use in elementary school? For someone like LeBron James, well, there wouldn't even be speed bumps for him. He would see them. He would know that they're there. He's also aware how tall they are compared to how tall he is. And so he would simply step right over them. He probably wouldn't even have to stretch his legs to get over them. But there's a level where those hurdles go to the next height, and then they're a little bit closer together. And then when you watch the men and women at the Olympic level competing from all over the world in the high hurdles, the 100-meter high hurdles, where those hurdles are really close together and you barely get time to put one stride on the ground before then the leg has to go over. And there's a specific way that you've got to launch yourself to get the spring off the ground, to fold your leg just right, to stride just right, to get your body balance just right, so that you can land on one foot and spring and go to the next. See, I barely have the coordination when I'm running against the curb to reshuffle my feet and step on the curb with the right foot. High hurdles would just be a nightmare. Part of it is I don't have the physical agility. It's not my skill or talent. Part of it is I've never been properly trained to run high hurdles. But if I were blindfolded and I didn't realize that these were high hurdles in a straight line and everything else around them was open, I might run into the first high hurdle and fumble my way through it and trip and fall and get up, and guess what I'm going to run into next? Another hurdle. For 100 meters, I'm going to run into another hurdle. And when I get past that one, guess what? Another hurdle. Do you ever feel in your life like you're running the high hurdles blindfolded and no one told you that's where you are? That's what happens when you don't know what you don't know. Triethylbromine is a chemical mixture. Now there's the the application or the applied usage of triethylbromine, it was a mixture created for the U.S. Air Force. It has a very specific purpose. And when it's mixed properly and it's gelled properly, and by that I mean it's heated to a very specific temperature, and you can look it up if you are interested or you care to know this, but there is a chemical process that changes place in that chemical makeup. So an example might be anyone can have a box of sugar and sulfuric acid. And when they're away from each other, it doesn't matter. When they're close to each other, they can eventually burst into flame because of the properties of their makeup. You could store both of them in your cabinet and no one would know and no one would care. And you can use each of them as you're supposed to. But when you mix them together, something changes. Well, then there's also what you would call a catalyst that you then add to that mixture, and that catalyst changes everything. Well, then there are also certain things that you can do under vacuum, under pressure, at sea level, at altitude. We talked the other day about pressure at altitude versus pressure below sea level, and how the pressure inside you has to be able to equalize with the pressure around you or it will destroy you. Too much pressure inside, not enough pressure outside, you explode. Too much pressure outside, not enough pressure inside, you implode. Well, triethylbromine has a chemical compound in it that actually shifts a bit at certain temperatures, which is why the Air Force uses it. See, it's a fuel catalyst that when used with JP-7 allows certain aircraft to fly above 80,000 feet where the air is frozen and there is no oxygen. All right, so if you know anything at all about firefighting, even you just took basic science in 7th and 8th grade, you know the fire triangle: fuel, heat, and oxygen. If you remove any one of those three, the fire goes out. Most aircraft fly by combustion. So you have to have fire. And when you get to 80,000 feet and you have zero heat because the air is frozen, and you have zero oxygen because you're above the level of oxygen, you have a problem keeping a fire. The only way to keep a fire in the afterburners to allow that aircraft to fly at that height is a catalyst that doesn't require heat or ignition and oxygen to burn. And triethylbromine is the answer. Now, what does that mean for triethylbromine? What that means is when it has been prepared, and you see all kinds of science experiments. In fact, I watched a bunch of YouTube last night before I taught this because I don't want you to think I'm making stuff up. But your average Joe scientist who likes to do silly stuff in his garage or his science lab at home will take triethylbromine, and you can make it in its stable form. You can make it at home in its stable form. And they will pour it out on the counter and light it on fire because, like lighter fluid, it burns itself. It burns its own vapor. It burns extremely hot. It's a green flame. Not yellow, not blue, not white. Green. And that green burn is because of the bromine in it, which is I can't remember what family that is, the bromides, I believe. The bromide family causes it to burn green, but it's also extremely hot, which is why it flies very well at that altitude. But there's something else that you got to know about it. When it's been pressurized and heated to a certain temperature, a catalyst takes place in it that causes it to no longer need a heat source at all. If it escapes from its container at room temperature, it will ignite. Because the ambient temperature that you live and breathe at comfortably is a high enough temperature for triethylbromine to burst into flame and burn very hot. And it's not always the liquid that burns, it's the vapor. So you may spill it over there and have a fire all around you, burning green and very hot at room temperature with no ignition source. Now let me ask you this question. In the same way that I could come and put hurdles up in your life, if I left a small glass with the lid of triethylbromine on your bathroom counter, would it be as dangerous to you because you know nothing about it as it would be to someone who is a scientist and knew everything about it? Well, yes. Of course it would. Your ignorance of the fact, your ignorance of chemistry, your ignorance, and by ignorance, that's not an insult. I'm not saying stupid. I mean unawareness of the facts of triethylbromine, your unknown limitations might cause you to behave or to do something that could be life-threatening or life-altering. Let that sink in for a moment. Because there are many levels in our life where our very limited exposure, our very limited knowledge, our very limited experience has left us ignorant of things that could put our life in harm's way. Things that could be life-altering. Minor decisions that could be life-altering. I was driving home from an event last night, and the guy that was with me, Reverend Michael Jarman, he's also one of our John Maxwell coaches. We were talking about a specific bridge in Dallas, and as we drove over it, he said, yeah, they used to jump over this bridge, and they go down into the underground, and they would cut up the cables, the phone cables, because he used to work for the phone company. I'm like, why would they do that? He said, well, because they thought they were good, valuable copper wire, and most of them were. He said, well, there was one guy who decided he wanted the big cable. He wanted the most copper, and he tried to cut into a power line. Okay, it may look like copper, and it might even have some copper element to it, but let me promise you this. You put your bolt cutters on a power line once, just once, and you don't get to sell the copper. His ignorance, although he thought he was in the know, his ignorance cost him his life. Are there places in your life where you feel like you got this figured out? You already know there is everything there is to know. There's nothing beyond your understanding. There's nothing beyond your limitations. So you can normally spot that kind of person because anything you say to them, they're like, yeah, I know that. I've been knowing that. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. Boom! Right? Because they're convinced that they got it, but they ain't got it. They're not even aware that they're ignorant. Because, well, they're ignorant. Again, that's not an insult. It's an explanation of the absence of knowledge. And it happens to young parents. It happens to arrogant leaders. It happens to people who run businesses. It is the reason that the coaching and training business is $2.9 billion a year. Because people are finally starting to catch on to the fact that everything they needed to know they didn't learn in kindergarten. And everything they needed to know they didn't learn in high school or at their bachelor's degree or with their master's degree. In fact, there are people that I train in leadership and communication skills on a regular basis who hold multiple PhDs in a specific discipline. And along their 16 years or so of education, they have not stumbled across some of the stuff that I train. It wasn't in their research path. It wasn't something they were looking for. And so they just don't know that they don't know. There are realities in your life that impact you. Little invisible things like the way you think about someone else. I had a gentleman tell me yesterday, I'm weird, so I take this as a compliment, but we had been talking about 20 or 30 minutes, having a pretty vibrant discussion about all those things that most people say, oh, don't talk about that, you're just going to cause a problem. We had a very lively, vibrant, healthy, respectful conversation. There were about 6 of us. And after about 20 or 30 minutes of talking, he looked at me and goes, you know, I'm really surprised by you. I had you pegged as a white supremacist. You're always coming in here, you sit by yourself, you don't talk to anybody, you ride that big old motorcycle. I didn't figure you'd have anything to say that I'd want to hear. And he followed it up with, but if you started a church, I would come. He doesn't go to church right now. Then he says to me, are you going to start a church anytime soon? I said, no. So far as I know, it is not in my plan to launch a church. I have not been told that's my calling. I got no problem serving in one, but launching one is not my calling. I haven't been told to do that yet. If I'm told, I will be obedient, but I haven't been told. He said, well, I hope you write down some of the stuff you say because it's pretty good. I said, well, I do a video every day. And he said, where can I find it? So, Oliver, I hope you're watching today. I don't know if you are or not. Maybe I'll see you at Starbucks when I get there. But there is an opportunity for all of us to step out of our unknownness, out of our ignorance, out of the stuff that we don't know, we didn't know, and into the realm of understanding by searching, by researching, by conversation, by being open to learning, being willing to learn, being willing to say, you know, there might be something about that I have never understood or that I currently disagree with, but I'm open to figuring it out. Maybe what I've been taught all my life was wrong. Is there any chance of that? Yeah, it's possible. Religion, politics, race, science, social science. You hear this phrase quite commonly that I don't want to turn out to be on the wrong side of history. Well, history is always written by the victor anyway. It's always made up. If you're not careful, you don't do the research and read the accounts of those who were there, history's not very reliable. First-hand account is reliable. No, it's not. Just ask any attorney, ask any judge, ask any investigator. If you've got 5 people standing on a street corner and there's a car accident, you will have 6 different eyewitness testimonies. 5 people, 6 different testimonies. But none of them are going to give you the same story twice, much less the same story among them, unless they have colluded together to come up with the same story. It's pretty powerful. So really the only way to know all the truth is to ask the source of truth or to ask a lot of people and find the commonality between their different answers. Both of those are my methods. I know this has not been specifically a leadership teaching. I didn't tell you, if you're a leader, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. But I am going to ask you the question again. Are you at a place in your life where you feel like you've been blindfolded and turned loose in a room full of hurdles? If that's the case, find a mentor. Take the blindfold off as soon as you can and figure out where the hurdles are. And then find a mentor, find a coach who can point you to the hurdles and the proper way to get past them. There is no reason for you to wander around blindly in a room full of hurdles, to trip over them for the next 100 meters. That's a choice. It's a decision you will have to make. It's a choice. I want to challenge you to ask yourself, am I operating my life in a place where I don't know what I don't know? I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. And if you're still watching, of course, those subscribe buttons, Facebook or YouTube, either one. And I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're watching on the YouTube channel, scroll down there in the description box. And in the description box, you'll see the link for the iTunes podcast. Within 24 hours, every one of these episodes, there's over 300 now. Within 24 hours, the new episode will be up on podcast. And so it will download straight to your iTunes account, and you can watch it on your phone. You can watch it on the go. It will go with you anywhere that you want to. It's free for now. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes podcast, whether you do on Facebook or YouTube or not. And if you would like not to get them in your podcast and take up the memory on your phone, because each one of them is about 200, 300 meg, if you don't want to do that, then you can go to the Tell It Like It Is Facebook fan page, not my profile, but the fan page. And when you click on that sign up button, there's actually an email form, and it will send you into my mail server. And every Thursday at 8 a.m., you will get that day's video, just as links. I don't send the whole thing to take up your memory, but as links, you'll get that day's video and Monday through Wednesday's videos as well. So you'll get the whole week's videos, and you can go through and watch them at your leisure. It just takes you back to the YouTube channel. but it'll sit in your memory so you can collect them. You can go back and watch them at any moment from your phone, from your email, without taking up any memory space on your device. That's also where, when I do workshops, when I do trainings, like I'll be speaking at the marriage conference in Greeley, Colorado at the 1st of October. So while I'm there, I will be doing some live from on the spot. I'll be in Branson, Missouri at the end of October at the Gathering of Eagles. I'll be doing some live events on the spot there, live interviews. If you want to get those things, this is a great opportunity for you to do that. Just sign up on the email list. I'll send out notifications. I'll send out advance notices for the books that we've got published. In fact, we've got 4 coming out between now and the end of the year. 4 books: The Attitude Hack, Learn to Word Communications, Learn to Word Leadership, and 5 Battle Strategies of the Victorious Warrior. All of those will be released before October, because I want to have them available at those speaking engagements. If you want to get copies of those, get on the email list. Go to Tell It Like It Is by J Loren Norris on Facebook. Go to the fan page, click on the sign up button, and you'll be able to get on that list. Right now, that's the only place to get on that list. That's the only link. So if you want to get on the mail list, you want to get the videos, you want to get the special offers, you want to get notifications of when I'm going to be near you speaking, you want to get notifications of workshops and classes that I'm going to do here. I do classes for Gateway Church from time to time. Those are free. I also do classes and workshops that are open to the public. So if you want to attend one of those, the best way to know about them is either right here when it's live or on that email list. So I encourage you to sign up for that. Meanwhile, click, like, share. It's the nice thing to do. I appreciate you being here with me today, and I appreciate you letting me be a part of your life. Stay blessed.